I've been indicted in Georgia. I've appeared on every occasion. I've been sued about 20 to 25 times by a very, very similar movement to this one, which is the let's see what we can do to destroy Donald Trump movement.
Okay, give me just a moment. Okay, sir,
I do consider this indictment a complete embarrassment to the American legal system, but I've shown no tendency not to comply. I show up for every court appearance, and there must have been about 20 to 30 of them. There is no history of my being a flight risk, which is the basis
for setting
bail.
Thank you, sir.
I think it'd be outrageous if you set a bond in this completely political case that comes very, very late.
All right, sir.
It was brought 3 years ago.
Giuliani, I don't want to mute you, but I need to move on. Give me just a moment. I understand what your position is regarding release conditions.
Rudy Giuliani and 10 other Trump allies pleading not guilty to charges of conspiring to overturn the state's 2020 election results.
The former New York mayor was ordered to post $10,000 in bond after evading efforts to serve him with a summons. Let's bring in CNN's Kyung Hwa, who's been following this. Kyung, what are you learning this afternoon?
Well, it was quite the arraignment. I haven't actually been inside a felony criminal court like that for an arraignment ever before, and heard quite a lot from one of the defendants. But basically what we began with when it came down for Rudy Giuliani's turn, he was the 11th out of 11 who were scheduled to appear either virtually or in person. He dialed in over the telephone, and the Assistant Attorney General clearly was fed up, saying that it was 3 weeks of back and forth where Giuliani was talking about this on his podcast, appearing on TV shows, even sending out a taunting tweet so that the Attorney General's agents followed him from New York, and then they finally served him notice of this arraignment that was scheduled for today, to where he would finally serve notice. But it happened at his 80th birthday party after he had finished singing New York, New York on his front lawn. When Giuliani was leaving that party, that's when he was served notice. So it was 3 weeks of this sort of a chase. And so what the Attorney General's office has requested is that he appear in person within the next 30 days and that he has to pay a secured bond of $10,000. The lawyer for the prosecution did explain exactly what their philosophy was behind this request. Take a listen.
Rudy Giuliani has made numerous statements over the past month discussing the indictment, his co-defendants, and quite frankly mocking the justice system in Arizona. Given his latest Twitter post and then his lie about communicating with our office, we decided it would be appropriate to ask for some kind of release conditions to ensure his appearance in Arizona.
So in court, Giuliani denied that he was ducking the authorities. He said to the judge that, look, this is a completely political case. Let's see what we can do to destroy Donald Trump, is how he characterized the charges against him. He went on and on for so long, even talking about the Iranian government at one point, that the judge said, I don't want to mute you, but we have to move on. He did plead not guilty. Boris, Jessica?
Kyung Hwa with the latest out of Phoenix. Quite a story there today. All right, thanks so much.